Why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Lorie Barzano. I'm a parent of an AISD student, a child who's currently in public school system. I'm a taxpayer, a formal public school teacher, and I'm currently the chair of the Coalition to Strengthen Austin Urban Schools, which is a parent-led group representing 24 different public school campuses in Austin's urban core.
So you're chair of this coalition now, but why don't you tell me about the events that originally got you involved in issues of the school district's policies and activity?
I originally got involved in school district policies, politics, and activities when my daughter was attending Becker Elementary School, and I was the chair of the Campus Advisory Council. And in 2005, the superintendent showed up one late spring Friday afternoon and announced that the school would be closing as of the end of the school year and all of the students would be transferred elsewhere. So I immediately got involved in an action to keep the school open, to change the policy of how the district made decisions for individual campuses. Back at that point in time, we even asked the district for the opportunity to have campus-based management, where we would have campus-based budgeting, and we declined that opportunity, but we proceeded to build a coalition of the neighborhood association, local businesses, community members, parents. Unfortunately, teachers didn't feel comfortable getting involved, but they were very supportive off the record, and we put together what we call the Becker Action Plan, and we listed, what the challenges at the campus were. We listed several options that we wanted to explore for meeting those challenges, and how we could improve the campus overall and make it a viable, continuing, quality public school campus for our children. We submitted that plan to the district. One of the options that was listed in that plan was a dual language program campus. We did the research for that. We finally did get approval from the district to proceed with that, and that's a very big success story not only on the Becker campus, but district-wide.
So because of your efforts to come together and to formulate a plan and to work as a single unit with the district, that's what you attribute the fact that Crockett ultimately was not closed by the district.
Becker.
I
know that's why Becker was not closed by the district, because it was a long drawn-out battle. It went through many school board votes. It went through many subcommittee hearings, many hours of testifying before individual committees and administrators and board members, and so it was a labor of love. That was a long, hard year to get to that point that we did get the district, basically was instructed by the board vote, which again was 5-4. It was very close, to allow Becker the time to implement this plan.
So how did that experience feed into the creation of the Coalition to Save Austin Schools?
A little over 2 years ago now, the facility use task force that was empowered by the district was considering options for all of the facilities in the public school system here. And near the end of their tenure, they produced a preliminary report where they announced the potential closing first of 9 and then up to 12, and eventually was 15 different campuses were named for potential closure. One of the parents from Ortega was outraged that this decision was coming down with no discussion at the campus level, and so he called a community-wide meeting. When I heard about that meeting, even though Becker wasn't on the initial list of potential closures, I decided to attend with several other Becker parents because we felt we had been through something very similar and we could share that experience. and help these other campuses to deal with it the same way we did, in the sense of the things that succeeded when we were dealing with it. Unfortunately, by the third meeting of this group that came together and began calling itself the Coalition, Becker was back on the potential closure list, so then it just became part and parcel of what was happening at Becker. And so the coalition came together, the Coalition to Strengthen Austin Urban Schools, because all 24 campuses that now are involved in the coalition are located in Austin's urban core. And we were very sensitive to the fact that the inner city schools were being shut down at the same time that exoburb schools were being built. Meanwhile, we were also fully aware of the fact that the city's plan, Imagine Austin plan, is all about infill and density. And you cannot have people moving into the city and raising their children if the school district has just finished closing all of the inner city schools. So that became part of our mission, if you will. But we were also very concerned about the fact that these decisions were being made downtown with no discussion at the campus level with the parents and the community members that are involved in those individual schools. And so at that point, we began showing up at every school board meeting, a representative from the coalition, and we would, on behalf of the coalition, make the formal request that AISD implement an authentic, transparent, inclusive, uniform, participatory, community-based process with a reasonable time frame for making decisions like closing a school or repurposing a campus. And we have made that request at every school board meeting for the past year and a half.
Why did your request include uniform and participatory in its list?
The uniform is important because the first thing we discovered when we came together as these 24 campuses, that different people were being told different things. We also discovered that different situations were being handled differently at different campuses. So it became very important to us that whatever process was being used was going to be uniformly applied. So we, because some campuses, they might have an administrator show up and talk to them. Other campuses, they would not. So our feeling was whatever that process is going to be, it has to be uniform so that we all know what we're dealing with. We all know what the first step is, the second step. We both know who we have to talk to and who we're dealing with. So we were insistent upon it needing to be a uniform process. I don't really want to get into class warfare, but there was some concern that that campuses that had a higher socioeconomic population were being treated quite differently than campuses that were Title I, and so we wanted to make sure that whatever process was put in place, it was uniform. The participatory was crucial because up until that point in time, the district's apparent definition of participation is we'll draft a formal plan and then we'll bring it to the campus and then you can edit some of the language and tweak some of the direction of it, but you're not ever offered the opportunity to actually participate in the vetting of options, the research of possibilities, and the actual drafting of the plan. So it became crucial that it would be a participatory process. And of course from there it was an imperative that it also be community-based, that it needed to be the parents whose children actually went to that school, that it needed to be the community members who lived around that school and volunteered and were involved with that school, that it couldn't be some team sent in from somewhere else.
And so all of these goals fed into, in part, your butcher paper story. Could you tell me that story?
Certainly. approximately 6 months after the coalition came together, in fact, it was on June 25th, 2011, the coalition decided that what it would do, working with these different campuses that were part of the coalition, is that we would hold a facilitated strategic planning session. So we all met on a Saturday at Ortega Elementary in the library, and each of the different campuses sat at a table. At each of the tables there was parents, community members, there were some teachers there as well who were involved in each of those schools. We had Campus Advisory Council members who also were sitting at each of those tables, and each campus did a basic strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis of their campus to look at what challenges they had to meet, to brainstorm some options for researching and vetting as possibilities for meeting those challenges. They looked at what the strengths of their campuses were in terms of what they could build on. They looked at what the weaknesses were in terms of what they had to get additional resources for. So each of those schools that was there on that Saturday, and we wrote on the butcher block paper all over the walls. And then each of us went away and took our butcher block papers and made them into a document that was a standard 8.5 by 11, and we basically were calling them campus action plans of what each of those campuses wanted to do towards improving their campuses and the quality of education for those children that attended those schools.
And those reports were similar to the one that you'd done before.
They were quite similar to what the process that Becker went through and created the Becker Action Plan, which had several options listed on it as well to be explored, one of which was dual language. And we submitted those reports. Each of those individual campuses then submitted those reports to district. We made the superintendent fully aware of the fact of the process we went through to create them. As a matter of fact, trustee Cheryl Bradley attended that day when we held that strategic planning session. And then we submitted them through Paul Turner down at the district office as being the community parent created preferences for the plan for their campuses.
And so what happened then?
Nothing.
So let me ask you, this event that you're describing was an event that was coordinated, facilitated, hosted by the coalition.
Correct.
Why is it that instead of doing this at an elementary school, you weren't working through these individual schools' CACs?
As you recall, I said that this happened in June, 6 months after the coalition coming together. In that 6 months leading up to this event, we did go through the individual campus advisory councils. We did actually make two different presentations at the district advisory council, all in alignment with saying this is a process that needs to be implemented, trying to find a way through the mechanisms that were in place to get this process introduced and validated. And each time we were just told to go talk to somebody else. And there was no one left to talk to in the district to get any action in pursuing this process, so we pursued it on our own.
Why do you think going to the individual CACs didn't end up being productive?
The fairly uniform response we received from the individual CACs was, well, we already have a campus improvement plan. And of course our individual responses as CAC members or parents was, but the campus improvement plans that are brought to the CAC are drafted down at district. They do not arise from the ground up. They do not embrace the things that we as parents and community members want to be on the agenda. We cannot find an opening to get our concerns placed on this agenda as part of the campus improvement plan because they are legislated to us from downtown.
So it sounds to me like the criticism that people leveled against the district for the process that went into approving IDEA and how that didn't involve the community, that was not a unique event in the district.
Not at all. Not at all. In fact, I could give you an event for every year, leading all the way back for a decade. So personally, myself, I've come to the conclusion it's systemic. That is the culture of this school district, is not to have a grassroots, participatory, community-based, transparent process in place for decision making.
You say it's systemic. Tell me more about that.
Well, I hate to throw cold water on what I consider a positive event, but I will keep it in the current frame of reference. The campus-based management method model that's being put in place currently at Travis Elementary. That is all anybody's been asking for at every campus. That kind of ground up, grassroots, stakeholders generated options and programs and decisions for that campus could be made with that same model. That's what everyone's asking for. Been asking for it for 10 years now. Here they went ahead and did it at Travis Elementary. They started it 3 years ago. They never shared that information with anybody. This process has been going on for 3 years, and yet in terms of sharing it with the public, it's only been made public within the last couple of months. So it was done in neither a transparent or a uniform manner.
Well, so let me ask you, you say campuses have been asking for this for 10 years, so they don't have it. What do they have instead?
What they have is a very structured, controlled by the administration, down to the district advisory council, and then down to the campus advisory councils. And the campus advisory councils have absolutely no authority. Where in this case, at the campus level, at Travis Heights Elementary, they have been given all the authority.
And that's better.
If that is what that campus wants. But the point is, no other campus is being given that choice, even though that many of them have asked for it.
Okay. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.